Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 94 of the Bonehead Podcast, where we talk all things Blood Bowl. Welcome back, I'm Ben, and normally we'd be joined by Bloodtithe Ben, but he is playing his trumpet tonight, so can't make it. Luckily, we've got our 3D printing correspondent, Ian Triplo, joining the crew instead. Ian, how are you today?
I'm all good. Yourself, Ben?
Not bad at all. It's been a weird couple of weeks. Like Blood Bowl seems to be like really busy, but also really quiet at the same time. It's really weird. I think I've got post project blues from like the Norse release. But can't really complain. How are you, Trips?
All good. Looking forward to a summer of Blood Bowl.
Yeah, we've got a good summer of Blood Bowl coming. Not as good as next year, but it's not going to be bad. Anyway, episode 90 flipping 4. Trips, what are we chatting about today?
So today we're going to be talking about choosing a team and reviewing the FAQ and seeing what else we would have liked to see in it, and the usual hobby, games, and news.
That's exactly right. So, yeah, choosing a team. We're going to have a bit of a deep dive into the things you go through when picking a team, whether it's league, whether it's tournament, play styles as well. And then you're probably sick of hearing about the FAQ now, but it's very important that we do go through the FAQ. What's changed? What's not changed? What did they completely miss out that they probably should have put in there? But first of all, as ever, let's have a quick look at Blood Bowl news. Okay, so Blood Bowl news. Obviously, the biggest thing is that Norse has been released. All of that's gone live and feels a bit old hat now, Trips. I mean, how long ago was it that Norse came out?
Oh, like the whole 3 weeks ago,
Yeah,
3 weeks ago. I mean, even Rumblow's come out now. I mean, we're living in the
that's
new
true.
times.
That's true. We're complete for OG star players now, right?
Yeah, we're pretty. Not only do we have the star players, we finally have the miniatures to play with them.
Yeah, which means it must be Grashnak Blackhoof we're waiting for, Max the Chainsaw Boy. No, not Max. Bryce the Slice Cambuel. Is that it now? Have I
Other than
have I
other
missed
than
somebody? Are we really that close now? We're 2 star players away.
I think so. I think we're
Oh.
at that stage where we desperately need another spike.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I don't know how you feel about this, but I like the way they're doing ad hoc star players now as well, like, Creek and Barrack Farblast, who, spoiler alert, we will talk a little bit about later. But it just feels like, and the Goblin star players, right? The fact they can just drop them out of nowhere, it fills me with a little bit of hope.
It does feel like they are massively tidying up Blood Bowl and going, well, actually, if we're going to release rules for something, we will release a miniature for it. And maybe, hopefully, in the future, it'll be the rules and the miniatures rather than here are the rules. And in 2 years' time, you may see a treatment.
Yeah, yeah. Blood Bowl's a really interesting kind of case study for Games Workshop. Like, I think more than any of their other games, they're under a lot of pressure from third party for at least, like, I'd say the core of competitive Blood Bowlers or historic Blood Bowlers. Like a new Blood Bowler coming into it, I was there. There's a huge element. Like you join the hobby, you join Games Workshop, and then you spend the first couple of years living in a Games Workshop bubble, and then you discover third-party games, and you kind of go off. Like I think now it's stuff like Burrows and Badgers and things like that. But when I was growing up, it was a game called Warzone, which was set in the Mutant Chronicles universe, and then there was Reaper Miniatures, and we kind of like went off and found loads of third-party stuff. But with Blood Bowl, it feels like if they release a list or a roster or a star player without a model, Grebo and Hunger and I think maybe Caliver 3D or an R&E studio are just like 3 days later, or Bloomin' Brute Fun, who is a machine, 3 days later is like, yep, here you go, guys. And then I don't know about you, Trips, but I've got my Rumbelow. Like I've had my Rumbelow for a while now, and I've not
Oh,
needed him, but I'm not.
I've taken Rumbelow to a tournament last year.
Wh-
I'm not going to ever get that Rumbelow because I prefer my one. I
yeah,
can paint him white.
that's exactly it. And now you've got that Rumblo, you're not going to go and buy the brains. Although the paint scheme of Rumblo on a black sheep, much better.
Much better.
Much better. Looks much less like it belongs on the Wagamama's menu. Udon noodles. They're kind of creepy looking. But yeah, so Blood Bowl news, no new teams, no new models, at least Games Workshop wise. I couldn't find anything kicking around the Kickstarter verse that is live at the moment for fantasy
Nothing
football.
live. A few rumours of stuff coming in the next few weeks, stroke month, but I think we're in the lull before the how many Kickstarters have I backed this week issue.
The cool thing is, now I'm not going to talk too much about it because we do focus quite heavily on 3D printed stuff on the channel, but it is the end of the month, which means the Patreons are going to be starting to brew up what's coming next. I mean, I've purposefully not done a Punga review this month because I wanted to wait for the whole Slan team from Punga. And now, when I say the whole team, I don't mean I'm going to wait 3-4 months, but when the part 2 comes out, and then obviously they're going to do 2 months of like star players or something, I'll do wait for the second month. Torchlight coming out with a Corn team. Have you had a chance to look at any of the previews of that, Trips?
I've seen the previews; they're looking pretty good. So be interested to see what the whole team looks like.
Yeah, I mean those are kind of the two things that keep me seriously going. Them and Artisan Guilds. I love their stuff because they've got modular hands. So no matter what they release, I will be able to fit it into Blood Bowl. I think last month was some undead dudes. So when it comes around to me needing some skeletons or zombies or wights or something, they're good to go. Why are people from work? It's 8:20, Jason. Honestly. All right, well, I'm going to ignore that and not worry too much about it. Anyway, so yes, nothing huge from a news point of view. And I think we need to go on to our BAU stuff then. So first of all, we just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who downloads the episode, who listens, who watches on YouTube. Hi, thank you very much. If you subscribe, it's really useful for us. And it's really, really useful to be supportive via Patreon. So a massive thank you to all of our patrons. We've got some new patrons again this fortnight. Lars Brundum, Jason Brake, Rupert McLeod, Lorenzo Kimarosa, Mike Liatzau, Sergio Diaz Sierra, Charles Mortan, I'm sorry, Aaron P. Porter, Sean Carey, Derek Austin, Christopher Hassel, and Bonehead Bowl winner Ben Davey, which is quite cool. So a massive thank you to everyone who supports us on there. It helps us do everything we do, and it always helps us with our tournaments as well. And we've got a tournament coming up 7 weeks, 6 weeks, Saturday maybe.
Yeah.
Because Tiff is counting down to our holiday because I will be in Italy, and you, Trips, and BT will be running the South Coast Summer Blood Bowl tournament. Which is available. Tickets are available now on Entoyment. They're £17.50. It is 3 rounds of Blood Bowl 11s. Normal teams, skills, 5 primary for tier 1, 4 primary for tier 2 with 2 secondary, and then 5 primary and 2 secondary for tier 3, I think.
Yep.
Star players are allowed, wizards aren't, but giants are. So if you want to go and challenge some great Blood Bowl coaches, I think we've got 40 tickets or something sold already, Trips, and I think
we're racing through, so we're already up for a really good day already.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm so gutted I can't be there for that, but old Pete in Toyment had to just sort of surprise us and be like, hey, we're doing a really big tournament weekend again, can you guys do something? And luckily you and Ben were like, yes, we can help out and do it all. So I started working on the loot today for that, Trips. I haven't ordered it yet, but I'll get it finished over the weekend, and I'll order the trophies as well, so that'll all arrive in the next couple of weeks and we can get pictures up for that. So yeah, really, really cool stuff. So South Coast Grand Series, that's the 9th of July. And then Merc Girl Emma, who came along to Dorset Dungeon Bowl, is running a tournament in Taunton, Somerset a couple of weeks later on Saturday, July 23rd. It is a 3-round 11s game, 11s tournament. So yeah, Saturday, July 23rd at Excalibur Gaming. The tournament is called Excalibur Blood Bowl Summer Sword. I will put the link below to the rules pack. It is a NAF registered event as well. Tickets are £12. They want your rosters in a week before, which I think is bang on. Scoring looks very similar to ours, although they've got perfect defense gives 3 points, not just one, which I think I like, and I think we'll steal trips. I think that's I like that. The rules pack's really well done. It's more concise than ours, and they've put the list of star players and the costs in the back, which I think is incredibly useful.
Saves any issues with those reading the old rules or the not reading the updated versions.
Exactly. Skills wise, tier 1 teams 5 primary, tier 2 teams 4 primary, 2 secondary, but they've juiced it up a bit for tier 3 teams, 3 primary and 4 secondary. So I feel like we're a bit stingy when it comes to tier 3 teams, but I like this. I'm in a bit of a Goblin zone at the moment, Trips, because I think Bomber is
Oh yeah,
I want to say underrated. I think he's appropriately rated on high. And if I am available, I kind of hope it's only 2 hours for me to this place. So I'm hoping if I can get my schedule all sorted, I might be able to actually go down and play it and take the new Goblin team from Torchlight, which I'm warming up ready for our next Bonehead Championship. So that's looking pretty good.
Yeah, lovely place. Good little store. Been there a couple of times, so fully recommend it.
That's cool. I suppose it's only about an hour and a bit from you, Trips.
About an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's good. I need to. Yeah, it's 2 hours 15. I had a look earlier, and I was like, that's pretty reasonable. There was one other bit of news that we didn't talk about that is actually quite worth talking about. Blood Bowl 3 beta is back. What is this round 3, Trips?
I think this is the third version of it. The first one was sort of everywhere. Second one was closed beta.
Yeah.
So this is the third one, and it's linked to Warhammer Skulls. So a week of us all trying to work out if we've gained any DLC for free.
So in 5 days, 16 hours and 34 minutes from the point that we are recording, which is next Wednesday, I guess. The 1st, yeah, available from the 1st to the 12th of June. They are doing another beta, another open beta. Now, I did the first one. I've got product key. I had a look at the first one, and it was very beta. It needed a lot of work, and I know we talked about it on the podcast. I didn't bother with the re-up. But this one I'm going to delve into because, Trips, they've added some more teams, haven't they?
Well, they've added some more factions.
Yeah, the news release did call them factions. So basically the blurst was they're going to have dwarves, elves, nobility, black orcs, and then what was it they said? 2 teams that previously you could never play, and you've never been able to play in a Blood Bowl video game before, and those teams, Trips, were
Renegades and I can't remember the other one for love nor money. But
you love it. It's your team. That's why I shipped it over to you.
Oh, the OW can't hit anybody A.
Yeah, bless them. I like this. We had a little bit of a chat about it in our group chat earlier. Milton was like, it's going to be these teams. And immediately, I think Saxby was like, they're the same sprites. And it makes a lot of sense that they would include these 2 teams because they've got the assets already. But I, for one, am even if you've got to assume that the beta's come along a long way from the last time. And I'm so excited to be able to cram in a bunch of Renegades games because I love Pact, but the best way to farm games for Pact is on Fumble, and it is quicker than Tabletop, but it's not massive. Like Blood Bowl 2, you can crack out a game in 45 minutes, right? An hour.
Yeah.
Fumble is an hour and a half, an hour 45, and Tabletop is about 2 hours. So it's not really a huge amount of difference between, matching games on Fumble and Blood Bowl 2. But BB3 here, I don't know if they're going to have PvP actually. Do you remember if they had PvP on the last part?
I think it was there, but I'm not sure a lot of people could get into it if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, you're quite right. Yeah, maybe they'll have decent PvP. If not, I will just absolutely spam games with Renegades to try and pull off some nonsense. So that's going to be really good fun. And it's the double bank holiday next week as well, isn't it? So this is landing on the Wednesday, and the Thursday and the Friday, it's bank holidays. Um, I was planning on working through my project, but I may just be playing Blood Bowl 3 now. So
I was going to say couple of evenings of spamming Renegades games, a few random skill ups, and yeah, mutations all over the place.
I think it'd be really good fun. I think it'll be really good fun. Um, I I mean, was the game was supposed to release, like, was it last year? Was it early this year? Are we in
I think it was originally August and then February, and it's still saying this year.
release date
That's it.
2022, huh? All right. Well, we're almost halfway through 2022, so if this is another beta, hopefully it's good and we can get a good angle on it. And because I'm really excited for this. I mean, I don't know about you, Trips, but I've kind of completely stopped Blood Bowl 2 now because
Oh yeah, it's another rule set for me, and I can't go back to it. So
yeah,
I think it's desperately needed. But it needs to be right, because if it's a absolute car crash, then yeah, it's not going to work very well.
yeah, it needs to be right. I think you're right. The problem is, you guys know how I play. I play fast and loose, unnecessarily. But in the old edition with the old throwing rules, that was really easy to do. So if I'm running a Skaven team with a thrower and 4 gutter runners, well, I've got 5 throwers. So I will start going back into my old dirty Skaven air raid tactics, and that's bad for Blood Bowl 2020 because gutter runners don't throw like that anymore. So it's not a good idea.
No.
Bad lessons. Bad lessons. But no, good point, Trips. Before we do move on, I guess we should check the show notes, see if I did skip anything else, which I didn't.
That's everything.
All right, good stuff. Right, now, hobby and bits. Okay, so hobby, games, purchases, and printing is kind of how the hobby section works. Now, we were kind of hoping to have Ben on here because he's been going on a bit of a very kind of Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Oh, I think we should be calling him Lumberjack Ben from now on.
Which I'm a huge fan of. Yeah, he's been doing some great work. But I mean, hobby-wise, Trips, you were building stuff as we started recording tonight, so I take it you've got a reasonable list of things to talk about.
Yeah, so I had a bit of a Necromunda kick. I got the new Ash Wastes box. I had it at the tournament, sitting there all day for everyone to get that lovely fresh sprue smell. And boy, are there are a lot of sprues in it. So
It was
I wanted to get all
massive.
of my. Oh yeah. So I wanted to get all of the terrain I've got, because I've got quite a lot of Munda terrain. But needed a decent board to put it on. So task number 1 was build a little game board last weekend, so I could get a 4x4 mat out and set my terrain out, that was a pretty good start. And quickly realised I can play Necromunda with nobody being able to step anywhere, because I've got enough terrain to fill double height.
That is what's so good about Necromunda.
And so they then went on to building the Ash Waste terrain, which it's really detailed. It's like everything you've ever wanted to see from Dune or Tatooine in Star Wars. So proper desert terrain and walkways.
You get the whole gangs in there as well, don't you? No, terrain is super cool.
Oh, the terrain is super great, and actually a couple of spray cans to it and make it look really rusty. It doesn't need much touching up and dry brushing after that. And then I'm on to the gangs themselves. So let's see if that comes up on the camera. We can. This is the vehicles. So these are the giant insects for the nomads to wander around on, and they're lovely. Even better, they're not fiddly to build.
That I'm quite surprised at. I'm looking at them on the screen now, and because I look at the Ash Waits box set, and those bugs are really, really, really cool. But they do, well, they don't. I guess they look well designed actually. You kind of look at them and think, oh, they're going to be spindly garbage, but they are pretty cool.
Yeah, they're just a one page of instructions. I was pleasantly surprised, and the most fiddly bit was putting the rider together.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I've got a box of those riders, so I hope they're not too fiddly. Have you built the standard infantry yet?
Haven't built them yet. They're sitting next to me, looking at me, going, "You should be not doing so much work and doing more hobby."
I like it. So I picked up a box of those guys as a reward for myself. So the last year, well, the last 6 months, I've kind of had like different projects going on and kind of bounced from one project to another project. And I have finally secured a permanent job in one of the projects, although will be seconded back to being on the other project immediately. Anyway, the important thing is I landed my job, I had another interview and got it, and I finally landed a permanent role. So I'm over the moon about that because I've been interviewing every sort of 6 to 8 weeks.
Pretty much, yeah. Every time we think you've got over it, you're re-interviewing again.
Yeah,
it's Monday morning. It's been interviewing.
Yeah, exactly. And it feels like every time we've been to a tournament, I've had an interview the day like because we did it for Beachhead. I had the interview like literally the following Monday or Tuesday, and then we had we had the Dungeon World tournament, and I had the interview on like the Monday or maybe the week after. Actually, I think it might have been the week after, but finally secured. So I have now got a permanent position doing what I was doing, which means I don't have to do any of that nonsense anymore. So I now have. I was so happy about it. I finished and I was driving back from where were we that day? We were at Odney, and I was driving back to Southampton, where we live, and I was like, Tiff's working late night because it was a Thursday, so I swung in to Games Workshop on the way home and had about a half an hour chat with the store manager, Rod. If any of you've ever shopped at Games Workshop Southampton, the dude's worked there for 28 years. You will know Rod. He's got a mighty beard. Oh, you've trimmed your beard actually, Dribs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Rod now beats you in the beard game. And I sort of was just looking around the shop. I was like, I want to buy something cool. I want to buy something for specialist games. I was like, maybe they'll have Blood. They've got a ton of Blood Bowl in the Games Workshop Southampton now. Super impressed with that.
Oh, that's great.
I was actually going to pick up some Enforcers for Necromunda because I was like, that'd be cool, or a Warcry team. They didn't have them, but they did have a box of the I don't know what they're actually called, but the Sand People.
They're the nomads. Nomad. Oh, I should know. I've got the Ash Wastes Nomads War Party.
There you go, the Sand People. So I picked up a box of those just as like, right, this is going to be my little celebration. I picked up a box of them. And they are sitting on the side, and I was like, no, need to focus, need to build my Goblin team. So I have put together one of the teams for the next Bonehead Championship, which will be the Torchlight Goblin team. So I've printed all that, got 2 Goblin star players from Forge World, undercoated them, then kind of did the base coat, which is very similar to the Prime, and then I painted all of the skin while binging Series 2 of Picard, although I've still got one more episode to go. So yeah, I've had a pretty good hobby week. I've printed, built, and primed an entire team, and I've nearly finished watching Picard. So excellent. I'm going to call that a win, Kapla, if you will. What else is on the list, Trips?
So I think that's it for hobby for me. Yeah, it's been mainly Necromunda terrain and into the gangs in detail. I did have a lovely game at club last week. I played with the Norse again, and I was playing Ian's ogres. He started smashing out a lovely ogre team. They went from being on a sprue to being better painted than everybody else's miniatures in about 3 days.
That is how Mr. Warhammer does it.
Yeah, and really interesting game. Ogres with Norse. It was definitely one of those where the dice were teaching both coaches at which point do you decide which role you're going to fail and how much it will hurt. He won 1-0, scored in I think turn 15, and admittedly I had a great defensive game. It could have been a lot more. His goblins, really ran around with the ball. Goblin cages were surprisingly difficult to get through.
Noblars are underrated. Yeah. I love them to bits. Absolutely excellent. Ogre team is a really solid team. It can fall apart quite quickly, ogres, and you've got
Well,
nothing good to fall back on. Like every other team has got a solid good player, right? So for Norse, you've got the Valks, humans, you've got the Blitzers, Skaven, you've got the entire team. But like with ogres, there's no like I've got one or two good players. It's just a case of I have a mixture of high strength and low strength trash, and I need to make it work. And sometimes it just works because
yeah.
you do have a mixture of high and low strength trash. Ogres are amazing. Now,
Well, they're amazing when they play. I think the first 4 turns, I think we rapidly worked out that the Bonehead sound from Fumble was great fun to do once or twice. But I think by about the 6th or 7th time in the first three turns, I was getting that look of stop now, this isn't fun at all. We're running out of Bonehead tokens at one point.
what do you got? So Ian was running the 4-4 build, I think.
4-4, yeah.
Yeah. So 8 turns, 4 ogres, rolling Bonehead every single time. Yeah, you're gonna fail what? 8 Boneheads?
Yeah, I think
something like that.
Neither half rerolls made it to turn 3.
And he was thinking about running 5 ogres and 2 rerolls.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a false economy doing it that way. It's slightly more fun because you get that ogre, but if you're running League, it will take you 140k to get to 5 ogres and 4 rerolls. From a 4-4 build, it will take you 280k to get to 5 ogres and 4 rerolls with the 5-2 build. So 4-4 is significantly better, and you should have enough to induce maybe Riotous Rookies.
I think for League, it definitely, we'd have Riotous Rookies. So it's a good solid base. I think the biggest thing that he took out of it was really sometimes it is just best to leave them where they are, and at least you know what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. With ogres, with big play, I tell you what, that is probably one underrated trick of Blood Bowl is knowing when not to do stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams out there that really benefit from that, and that is something that we will be talking about very shortly when we talk about choosing your team. But yeah, hobby wise, I've got my Ash Waste dudes to build. That means you and I can sneak in a Necro game at some point, which would be cool. And been painting some Blood Bowl and still printing the big project, which is sweet. My resin reserve turned up today, so I think I am 4 prints away from having everything printed. It's like a 20-something print job, and it means I can spend all weekend TIFFs working, which is rubbish, but it does mean I won't get in trouble for having the entire lounge covered with bits of sprue and big hobby projects. So that's pretty cool too. So yeah, that's I think that's about it. Trips, anything more?
Yeah, nothing else. I think we're in that nice space at the moment where everyone's busy doing hobby and not panicking because there's a tournament 2 weeks away.
Yeah, it's 6 weeks away. South Coast Series. Right, let's move on to the first topic. Welcome back. Okay, so the first topic we're going to talk about today is choosing your team in Blood Bowl. Now, we've got 28 teams in Blood Bowl, I think. 29 teams in Blood Bowl.
Yep.
I went through and checked the list out earlier, and I missed a team out, and I had a little bit of a meltdown because I was like, I'm so confused. I don't understand. I'd missed out Necromantic. Sorry, Necromantic players out there. I'd missed them off. So there's 28 official teams, plus there is Slan. It went up to 30, but then Demons of Khorne got Bretonianed.
Yeah.
Too soon. Yep, they got Thanos snapped into the history of Blood Bowl. So we've got 28 official teams from Games Workshop, including the now 5 teams of Legend and the 1 team that is Slan. So that is an absolute ton of different teams. So if you're starting with Blood Bowl, how do you choose your team? And we kind of talked about this on amongst ourselves, and it was kind of, I think the first Trips, when I said we're going to talk through choosing a team, did you immediately think for League or for tournament?
I think that was the first thing. It was for what?
Yeah. It's really cool because actually, if you're going to a competitive event, there's a lot to consider about what team you're going to take. And this is one of the things I really love about going to a Blood Bowl tournament or running a Blood Bowl tournament is, right, here's the rule set. What's going to be great for that? Like, what can you what can you exploit?
What can you do?
Yeah.
What do you want to get out of the day?
Exactly. What little tricks can you do? But otherwise, you start in a league. What team do you take? Not only is there 29 teams, but there are sub builds within all of those teams as well. So there's probably about 35 to 40 different teams that you can take. So we thought it would be worthwhile just kind of talking through what you think about, what's worth considering, and kind of how you get to the output. So choosing your team. Step one of choosing your team is you cannot skip over this bit. Part one is favorites and appearance of the team. Now, when we say this, we mean if you have played Blood Bowl, if you've got a very serious favoritism towards something, and you really have to start there. And what I mean for that, I mean, Trips, you've been in that wargaming long enough to know there are some people out there that love playing orcs, right? They love playing orcs in 40k, in Warhammer, in fantasy, in Lord of the Rings. And when it comes to Blood Bowl, they're going to be like, oh, cool, there's an orc team. I'll play orcs. Or, in my case, I'm a big Skaven coach.
Yeah. Occasionally you've played a Skaven team.
And more occasionally, I've played other teams just like Skaven, that even though they aren't, including orcs, including dwarves. Which worked out better than expected, to be honest with you. So, favorites and appearance, this is really like you come into it with preconceived ideas that's going to be enough for you to play, I think. And that kind of, I mean, Trips, we've seen this a load in tournaments as well, is that includes theme.
So I think it's theme as well, but I think there's a lot of players, and you and I are probably bad examples of coaches that are definitely of the what's the next team I haven't played, as opposed to the what's my favorite team. But there are some coaches who they will play one or two teams. They love their teams. They spend a lot of time and effort on them, and they're their thing, and they know them really well. And you're in for a hard time. And I think that's great when people they know the team inside and out.
Yeah, that's bang on. There's a coach who comes to almost every one of our tournaments. He may have come to every one of our tournaments. Gerger, Dan Maskell, plays Dark Elves every single time. Was 1 point short of winning, I think, Bombember with Dark Elves, because he's just like, I love Dark Elves and I want to play them until I get really good at them. And then, lo and behold, came to Dungeon Bowl with the College of Beasts, which I was blown away at. I saw his roster come in and I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be Dark Elves, and it was not. And I was like, this is amazing. This is incredible personal growth. But when you have a thing that you love, either because you've painted it beautifully, or you always run it, or it's a comfort team, or you're Joe solo and you've gone, you know what would make a great team? I'm going to... What team could I make be residents of a care home? And then... cosplay it or whatever. It's really cool. And that's kind of this first step, is there will be times where you want to run a team because it's released and you love the look of it, because you've converted it, because there's a theme. And when it comes to that, it doesn't matter what the rule set is, what the length of the league is, or how the team plays. If you've already decided that you want to run your bunny team, then you're going to figure out what team you want to run it as using those models. I mean, I think that's probably the most important point to start, is if you've got one team, if you've got one thing you love, start there. But then, Trips, we'll move on to probably the most important piece, which is play style. And this is where I think the majority of this conversation is going to sit around, because there are 28 teams, 29 teams in Blood Bowl, and what we've done is we've kind of grouped them together into play styles. So we've got bash, we've got control, we've got mid-range, we've got dash, and we've got special. So what we'll kind of do is break down what we mean by those play styles. We'll talk through them kind of one by one, and if you're trying to brew up an idea for your next team, or whatever, maybe one of them will twig, or maybe you'll realize that actually you play this one type of team all of the time, and you're going to figure out why. Okay, so playstyles. We've got Bash. Bash is all about murder. They are good at murder. They are good at attrition, but they are also resilient. This is the team that wants to, every turn, make as many blocks as possible. Their focus is on deleting the opposition. That's their game plan. Their game plan is to be Rocky Balboa, right? To just get punched and punch back, but win that attrition. The downside of Bash teams is they normally have limited speed or agility. They might have average speed or agility, but really nothing better. They're not going to have gutter runners. They may not have a great throwing game. Their strength is strength, armor, resilience, and an ability to hurt the heck out of you.
You're probably talking about a team that have got one or two positionals tops that can do anything with the ball, and the rest are all strength skills on a primary, and that's where you go in, and that's your comfort zone.
Yeah, and there's a lot of these kind of teams in Blood Bowl, and there's a lot of teams that fit in kind of several different windows, because it is just it's a sliding scale essentially. So sorry, Trips, were you going to say something?
Well, I was going to say an important thing about this is you can play any team in any way. I think this is from our experience where most people would comfortably play the team without stretching it to its limitations. So you're generally not going to see a halfling team played as a Bash team, but someone will have a go at it. It's probably suboptimal,
yeah,
but someone will have a go.
And this is not to say that there won't be times where you will be the Bash in a matchup, and that there may not be times where you end up the result looks like you were the Bash. Okay, so halflings can sometimes murder face. Normally, when they're running two trees and Griff, and they've got a dirty player halfling, and actually they go for the main deleting things. Every team can be right. Every team can dash, and every team can bash. Like I said earlier, I play dwarves like Skaven. Dwarves are one of the quintessential Bash teams, right? But I still running them around and scoring touchdowns and making everyone move 6 or 8. So you can do that. Now, as the play styles kind of move on, there is what we kind of had this subset of a Bash team in the control teams. So control is all about defense. Now, Trips, you and I just said about it, like sometimes the key to Blood Bowl is not activating stuff, letting your opponents roll the bad dice. Control teams fit into that. When you're playing control, it's different than Bash. Bash, you want to be aggressive, pushing through your opponent. Control teams, you want to let your opponent fail trying to come through you. So defense, their strength is defense, resilience, counterplay, taking away your opponent's strengths. Normally they have limited flexibility, which means they are either offensively stunted or a bit resilient or a bit slow. They tend to be a little bit subpar, but if you play them well, your opponent just cannot get through. And I think the biggest kind of identifiable team that I think is control is now Imperial Nobility.
Absolutely, they're a classic team where they will stop the opponent doing pretty much everything they want to do, and their most likely way of scoring is a great defensive play.
I absolutely love Nobility, and they're great, right? They're movement 6, movement 7. Yes. Sometimes they've got some throwing game, they've got reasonable agility, but their greatest strength is you going, right, I'm going to put my stand firm guys here with that wrestle as well. I've got my fend guys here. So you're going to try and do your thing, but okay, Mr. Corn team, okay, Mr. Minotaur, Rat Ogre, you're going to frenzy, and it's a push, and I've got fend, and that is it. Your Rat Ogre is quelled by my retainer, and you've made no headway. You cannot break through because I've got these tackle zones. You can blitz my stand firm wrestle guy, but actually I'm not going anywhere, and now my corpse is in the way. it's a really fun way to play, but it's different from Bash, because Bash is punch, 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 right? Gonna punch, gonna make a hole, gonna run through it, gonna drag your skull along with me. Control is very much like kung fu.
Yeah, control is so much about positional play, and control goes wrong when you get your positional play wrong and you leave that hole for someone to go through, or you leave the player to get bashed out. But when you see a control team played by someone who just positions everyone in the right way, you can often be on the other side and just go, I don't know what to do because everything is bad.
Yeah, and that's it. I think of all of these, control is the one that supports good play the most. And then it kind of filters into mid-range. So there's two ends. There's Bash, which is about causing casualties and not being casualtied, and then there's Dash, which is about scoring touchdowns and trying not to die. And in the middle of that box is mid-range teams that can be both, that are probably, I think the best way to describe a mid-range team is flexible enough to be able to choose the right way to play on the day. So
yeah,
a human
they're
team,
probably playing the right style against the opponents. They probably flex for
yeah,
the opponents, but they'll never bash a Bash team. But that's not what you'll try and do with them.
yeah, that's exactly it. They've got enough of everything to be able to choose the right way to win. They've got all the toolkit at the disposal. Human, quintessential mid-range team. They've got four, most of the time, four Mighty Blow Guard blitzers and an ogre. That's your bash. That's going to outbash a lot of the lighter teams. But they've also probably got maybe one or two movement 8 guys with a passing player with passing 2+, and they've got those very same blitzers who by this point are movement 7 blockers. So they've got enough to be able to, they're going to outrun dwarves and they're going to outpunch elves every single time, and they get to choose. And if they fit in that gap of, right, who am I? What is my role in this game? Am I going to line up and win this fight, or am I going to need to step back and run around this fight? And those mid-range teams, they've got to be flexible. They've got to have decent speed and decent agility enough to be able to go, in this matchup, you've got mostly Edge 4, movement 6. I've got mostly Edge 3, movement 6 and 7. I'm the Dash in this one because you've got strength 4 everywhere. But they are also not the best. This is their vulnerability, is, like you said, Trips. They are going to get outbashed by teams and they are going to get outdashed by others. So kind of their strength in being flexible is their biggest vulnerability, because they are not the best at doing anything except trying to find a way to win. And I think when we go through the teams that we kind of feel like fit in these pots the most, there's going to be a lot of contentious stuff in there. But this is why we're kind of talking it through. So we've got Bash, that is all about punching and creating holes. Sorry, Trips.
Well, and it's in mid-range teams. I think it's a safe place for a new starter, a mid-range team, because they've got that flexibility where you can figure out your play style by doing it. But I think the complication of a mid-range team as well is that to play them really well is really difficult, because you're always a little underpowered in whatever style you want to play. You've got the ability to play different styles, but you're always one or two positionals who excel in that short.
Yeah, that's absolutely bang on the money. Then you've got the Dash teams. These are the fastest, the most agile teams. They will be the ones that score the most touchdowns, but they will also be the ones that suffer the most casualties. In a tournament, that doesn't matter quite so much. In a league, that matters a huge amount, and this is what we'll talk about, the difference between leagues and tournaments and how you go and choose a team. But I am a huge Dash player. I think I love it. It's just so much fun to be able to see the map of potential plays on the pitch and just go, you know what? I've got a 3+4+ touchdown here. I've got 2 rerolls. This is going to be fine. I'm going to pull this here, go this here, and create these openings that didn't exist before. Get that touchdown, get that reset, and just you're fighting against the clock more than you're fighting against your opponent with the Dash team, because you can score as quick as you like, but you're going to give your opponent more time to bash you. they're fragile as anything. The majority of dash teams are fragile, and you are going to lose 2 to 3 players a game, and that's your massive vulnerability, because the more time you give your opponent, and at this point, when you've got a proper dash team, there's not a lot of opportunity for you to be the stronger team here. Very rarely.
Even if you play another dash team, you're not going to be taking off 5 players on the other side. You're going to both be chasing down players all over the pitch.
Yeah, and it's a really weird one, because you could look at some teams and think, that one's a little bit stronger, but it gets exacerbated. So Skaven are a great example of a dash team, but you chuck a Rat Ogre on there, it hurts their ability to dash, but it also means that in a dash versus dash matchup, you've got a massive edge when it comes to bash. And this is this is like the scale of it, is every team has got a slightly bashier build and a slightly dashier build, and you're kind of playing with that range, because humans versus Skaven, humans are going to be bash. Humans with no ogre versus Skaven with a rat ogre, you got more of a fair fight. It's a really interesting one. But talking of interesting teams, there's the last category that we've just put as special. The majority of these teams are stunty. They're special because they've got special tactics. If you're playing a card game, this would be the combo decks, right? We talked about ogres today, but if you think about goblins, you think about snotlings, you think about halflings. It is if everything goes right, they're monstrous. And I think ogres are probably a great example of this. If you don't bonehead, you're going to win that game, because that is 8 to 10 mighty blow block dice every single turn, and that just means your bash is on form. Ogres are not a bash team because they're not consistent enough. And goblins with an air game, with a run game. Goblins are brilliant, but only if they can pick up the ball. And we've also put vampires in this category, because they are another team that is incredible when everything goes their way. If they pass all the animal savagery, then their team is amazing. If ogres pass all bonehead, they're amazing. Doesn't happen all the time. If the trees in a halfling team never root, they're great. Well, they're still a challenge. Okay, so that kind of breaks down the different play styles of the teams in Blood Bowl. Let's actually have a look and see which teams we put in these pots. So if you're thinking, actually, I really like the idea of a bashed team. So Bash and Trips, I want you to shout out if anything here doesn't feel right to you. So Bash, Black Orcs, Chaos Chosen, Chaos Dwarves, which are a team of legend, Dwarf, Khorne, Norse, and Orc. Their primary goal is to hurt and then go through, okay? To go through your opponent's team using attrition.
I think I agree with all of those. I think the ones where you can probably adapt the style a little bit is Orcs. If you really want to use a thrower as a ball carrier and do something with you, then good luck to you. But you can definitely try and play them a different way. I imagine a few people will go Khorne and Norse could be control teams, but remember you're controlling by bashing, so you are a bash team at heart there.
Yeah, hugely so. Now, Orcs are definitely one of those rosters where there is a sub-build of Orcs, which is the fast Orc roster, which I love, which is no Black Orcs, no Troll, but Blitzers and Goblins and a Thrower. And then you're right, it does become more of a mid-range team where actually you've got a fluid resource, but you miss those Black Orcs. Generally speaking, you come up against an Orc team, they're going to spend 2/3 of the game making profitable blocks, because when the Orcs have got 11 players and you've got 8, they're going to be able to just push their way through and score that touchdown in their own time. So a bash team is trying to control the game by having more players on the pitch, whereas the control teams are trying to control the game using all the pieces that are around anyway. So we've got Nobility, Nurgle, we put OWA in there, and Tomb Kings for control teams. Now, these are the teams that are going to play winning by playing good positioning and allowing the opponent to kind of break upon your formation. So this is kind of shield wall tactic.
Absolutely, and I think I think Nobility and Nurgle. I mean, Nurgle can't do anything but control. They literally can't be in any other category. And Tomb Kings they are the ultimate positional team. I think Tomb Kings. You play them well. They're really difficult to play against, but you play them a bit loose, and yeah, they fall apart quite quickly.
Yeah. Control.
OWA desperately want to be a bash team, but with the skill tweaks that they've got, they are not.
It's control is essentially defensive bash, I think is the best way of putting it. So this team can win by making your opponent make mistakes and just giving no quarter. So now, don't get me wrong, a well-developed Nurgle team can be really bashy, and a well-developed Nobility team can be reasonably dashy. We're not saying that it has to be one type, but when you're starting 1 million, 1100 TV with a few skills, these teams want to win by positioning well and making your opponent fail. You called it out when we talked about Nobility. Nobility are great at just allowing your opponent to turn over the ball or to leave a gap and just punch in with wrestle, with a bit of stand firm, with the blitzers. And I did it. We had our wobble league, didn't we? And we had the Nobility team, and I had a great time with them. That's a lot of success because you just position and go, you know what, try and get through this. I've got stand firm, I've got fend. You're going to be making bad dodges, try and break through, and at some point they have to try it, and it'll either work or it will not. And these teams can capitalize on that. Really interesting. They are all kind of wince when you hear about playing them. Nobility not so much because they're kind of the fastest of this team, but if you say what team are you running, you say Tomb Kings, Old World Alliance or Nurgle, and they're all a well-versed Blood Bowl coach is going to go, ooh, really? Ooh.
And they're all teams that at 1 million are difficult to play against, but if you're playing at 1.1, 1.2 or with skills, they can be frightening teams to play against because you just know you're in trouble from 7 or 8 different players on a consistent basis.
It's very fair. Now, teams that fit within the mid-range category, we think we've got Amazons, Dark Elves, Human, Lizardmen, Necromantic, Chaos Renegades, and Undead. These are all teams that can outbash the opponent, but can also switch to be dash if they need to and do so quite well. Amazons are a really interesting one. They are basically a bash team, but as far as they go, they won't outbash most of the bash teams there. And even though a 3+ dodge is never great, but a 3++ dodge gives you that opportunity. If you need to bootleg it, if you need to be able to get out and reform your lines to play a screen, to play a skirmish, Amazons have got that advantage. They are technically better at dodging away than Dark Elves are. And Dark Elves are the masters of the screen, okay? They strike where they want to, and then they can fall back, and they've got that dodge and speed to be able to go and score. Human, we talked about, they can outstrength you, they can outspeed you, but they are not the top of either of those charts. Lizards have got 2 really individual contingents of Great Dash and Great Bash together. They don't work like in concert. They are both bash and dash at the same point, which means that actually they've got that flex. Like they can be considered a dash team because they've got movement 8 guys, but they've also got 6 strength 4 guys.
Yeah, and their bash isn't painfully slow either. It's flexible enough that it gives you the ability to really mess up your opponent.
It's interesting to see how different a Lizardman team is from a Black Orc team. Lizardman versus Black Orc, they will go and be dash, and they will do a great job of it. And that's why Black Orcs sit in that bash category, is because even though they've got the flexibility with movement 6, dodge 3++ goblins, they will win that by using 6 Black Orcs, maybe a troll, and brawler grab, grind the opponent down, because their dash does not have that breakout ability that the lizards do. Whereas the lizards can be like, right, 2 die block, movement 8, 3++, touchdown. Which means lizards are incredibly dangerous, and Lizards. They are my nemesis against Skaven. I lost in the final to them against Lewis in the league. And Lizards, I think Lizards trump Skaven because they are stronger and almost as fast. We've got Necromantic in there as well. Now, Necro are resilient. They've got very good, I want to say, blitzers and runners, because they do. The werewolves are amazing. The whites are pretty good. They've got ghouls who can be pretty dashy. They've got flesh golems who can be pretty strong. This team has got the ability to outbash opponents, but has also got movement 8 guys and movement 7 guys with dodge. So they've got that flexibility. If you put that Necro team up against a heavier team, I think they're probably a really good example of that mid-range vulnerability, whereas Necro can outrun a team, but they've only got 3 or 4 players to do it. Lizardmen can outrun a team, but they've normally only got about 4 skinks. You delete those 4 skinks, they're tough. Necromantic, you take those ghouls out, again, same spot.
Yeah, you can force one of these teams to play in a certain way if you can catch the right players and squish them.
Yes, this is why tackle is a very, very good skill. And then the last 2 teams kind of fit in the same category. Undead, historically, really good when it comes to the bash front, but actually they've got enough flexibility with the ghouls and the whites to be able to actually bootleg really quickly. They're basically almost as fast as a human team. So they are more bashy than mid-range. They're more bash than dash compared to humans, but they are also, this is why Undead are so good, is because they're similar, like to the Lizards. They've got that strength, they've got that resilience, and they've still got that breakout ability of 3 or 4 ghouls probably and a couple of whites, which means the majority of the team is movement 6 or 7 with edge 3+. At that point, you've got that flexibility.
Yeah, you can play Undead without having to grind your opponent into the ground, but you can grind your opponent into the ground.
The thing is with Undead, it all depends on what your opening few turns are. Because your opening few turns, you're going to have a couple of really solid mummy blocks and a couple of really solid white blocks. And if you can get 1 or 2 pieces of removal, Undead, if they get the numbers advantage, then they switch to bash and they can cream through. But they've got enough speed there to be able to break through in 2 turns if they need to score a touchdown without a huge amount of difficulty. Now, the difficult one here was Chaos Renegades. So we did put them in mid-range. There was a bit of a chat about this because someone was like, what's the normal build where it's 3 big guys? And they're like, well, you're telling me 3 big guys is not a bash play style? And while I think there is definitely you could definitely say that 3 big guys is a bash play style, this is not where the team does not have the resilience to rely on that attrition. Like I tell you what, maybe Chaos Renegades should have been put in the special category, where if everything goes right, the team's going to cream through.
So I think they fit well in mid-range, and I think the thing about all of the teams in there is you look at them, and particularly your Dark Elf, Human, maybe your Necromantic team, but your Renegades and your Undead, you can develop that team to be any of the other types of team through the right skill ups, the right positionals, and a little bit of luck in keeping the right players alive. So I think that's where they sit in that mid-range area really well, is that you can develop them into the way you want to, or keep them very much as a generalist team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. They don't have a set play style. Their set play style fits in that category of being flexible. It's just like with humans and undead, they kind of get to choose, like, in this game, which am I going to be? What can I play to my strengths with? With Chaos Renegades, it's less playing to your strengths and more playing to your opponent's weaknesses. It's okay, I'm stronger than you, therefore I've got the advantage here. But I mean, it's an awesome team, and I cannot wait to run them on Blood Bowl 3. I'm going to go Rat Ogre, Ogre, and Minotaur, and I'm just going to be as bash as I can.
But it's going to go all very well until you have that game where it goes all very, very badly. Yeah. But the advantage of Blood Bowl 3 is it'll be over in half an hour. And
exactly.
You can get another one going.
Rack it up. Okay, so Dash teams, we've got Elven Union, High Elves, Skaven, Underworld, Wood Elves, and Slann in this group here. And this group is all about using what strength you have to make an opening to run through it. And if you've got time, cage up near the end zone to kind of bleed a clock of a couple of turns at most. The great thing, all of these teams have got a huge stretch play advantage. And that is, I think, probably one of the defining qualities of the Dash team is you can have the ball in your backfield and you can still score in one turn. Whether it's
going to be running all over the place, and you're going to be rolling the d6s, not the block dice.
Yeah. And if you guys watch the channel, we've seen Skaven and Wood Elves are in the championship, and spoiler alert, top scoring teams, because they just have that ability to go, actually, there is a way here, and I've got movement 8 Edge 2+ dudes, I've got movement 9 Edge 2+ dudes. All I need to do is not roll a couple of ones, and I'm going to be able to move 20 squares and score from my backfield to the end zone because there was a pocket, a gap. High Elves are more resilient. They're the most resilient team in this category, I think. Well, Slann are reasonably resilient too, but they've still got more dash about them, High Elves, than mid-range. Whereas Dark Elves have got a stronger combat contingent. High Elves have a very limited combat contingent, which means that they're either average fighty but mega flighty, whereas Dark Elves can be both, I think. So High Elves are a more armoured Elven Union team. They still play with the stretch goal. They still play. High Elves are a kind of more screening game than Elven Union because they are technically a little bit slower. But it doesn't matter. You don't line up with a High Elf team very often on the line of scrimmage and go, I'm going to take a load of blocks here.
You're not going to be looking to pitch clear win with any team in this category, but you could well end up with a 3-0, 3-1 and be quite happy that you were down to 6 or 7 players left at the end.
Yeah, 7-2 is my record with a Blood Bowl team. Yes, Wood Elves. Wood Elves against Goblins. It was against Alex at club and couldn't believe it. Monstrous of scoring game. And it was a league game too, so... this was back in the olden days there where the War Dancers ended up leveling a couple of times, like randoms. So good. Then we kind of got the special cases. So Goblins, Halflings, Ogres and Snotlings. First point of call. They're all stunty teams. They're all where your main focus is on getting away with stuff you shouldn't be getting away with. And inducements, I think, is probably the most important thing about those guys, whether it's league or tournament. You're looking at that team. You look at any other team, basically, from any other categories, and you go, cool, I can build a solid team here. You look at any of these 4 stunty teams, you go, ooh, that's a cool base. What am I adding?
Yeah, you're looking straight into the, I'm going to learn which star players to use, which inducements to use, and I'm going to be fine with the fact that actually I don't want, other than a few players to skill up, anybody to skill up.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why they sit in their own category. They are insanely fun to play. And what you see in Blood Bowl regularly is someone will start Blood Bowl, they'll either have that favourite team, that favourite theme, or they'll go with a mid-range or bash team with a really, or a team with a really clear goal. They'll go, boom, I want to play this team, I've got an idea how to win, great. And then season 2, league season 2, league season 3, they're like, you know what, I want to do something different. And that's when the stunty team happens. And you see this a lot of tournaments as well. They're like, normally I'm a Wood Elf coach, but actually I wanted to give Ogres a go, to be something different, to have that challenge, to run Griff.
I think everyone should play a team in this category. If you've got probably more than 2 of the categories, you should play this one just for the fun of it, and it will be for the fun of it. It will probably be quite painful as well, but you should always you should go stunty for one tournament or one league.
And then there's the last team, which I put in this category, is Vampires. And the reason they're special is they play unlike every other team. Okay, they've got no skills. They've got no positionals. They've just got vampires who are brilliant players when they behave themselves. So they're kind of just, it's such a different team to play. You have to it's got less punishing in this edition. They do the right stuff less, essentially, but you're not going to completely destroy your own team like they used to. But it is still, you know, every one of these teams is great when the team behaves itself. And I think Vampires sits in that category of I'm playing against my team here. If you've got a Goblin team or a Snotling team, you've got Trolls, you are playing against the Trolls on that team. You're playing against Bonehead when you're playing Ogres. You're playing against Animal Savagery when you're playing Vampires. And it's a great new challenge. But you are going for an experience rather than a toolkit at that point. That's a really interesting category. So those are the play styles. Those are the teams you put in there. Is there anything, Trips, you think we got in the wrong box?
I don't think so. And I think it's interesting if you straight away you look at your own team preferences and detail, and I'm definitely in that control section as a play style coach, and I will play teams. A bash team I will try and play control, and a mid-range team I will try and play control. That's my comfort zone as a play style, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I play Skaven, and I play my Black Orc team like my Skaven team. I play my Dwarf team like my Skaven team, and sadly, I try to play a Norse team like a Skaven team, which is why I am no good with Norse, because I just can't bootleg with them the way I need to.
Happy to play you playing Norse like a Skaven team.
Yeah, you have twice, but I think Norse fit more bash control than bash mid range, and I think that's a category I can't cope with as a coach. That's my gap. I can do crazy stuff.
I think anytime you're playing a team that's outside of its sort of comfort category or the one next to it, you are in a case of going, if you roll really well, it will go okay. If you roll average or bad, that's gonna be, you're gonna be going, oh, that wasn't the best move to make.
Yeah, that's like walking in the wind with an umbrella, but you're leaning on the umbrella to hold you up. If the wind goes different, then you're going to fall over, and you're also going to fall over if you roll 2s instead of 3s, instead of the other way around. Go for it, Norsebain. So that's kind of the breakdown of teams and how they play. So if you're coming from Magic the Gathering, if you like saying no and allowing your opponent to try things and then you stopping them, maybe control, maybe bash. You know, if you like that mid-range Abzan control, then actually a mid-range team is going to be great for you. If you love combo, then Stunty or Dash is going to be the way. And if you love aggro, then actually Dash is potentially the place you want to be, or just heavy bash and just be like, I am going to absolutely hammer you with my red-green deck, and it's just going to be punch, 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 punch. Game's over because you've got nothing left. And there's so many different styles, but Trips called it, like, you can play any team any way. They just kind of have a way to play better. So
you might be in that suboptimal build, but sometimes that's the fun of Blood Bowl, and that's why there are so many teams and so many categories, is that there isn't really an awesome meta that everyone's striving for play. There are 29 teams with loads of variants to play out there, and half the fun is working out how many of them you can do.
Yep. Interesting. The chat about the FAQ is it's very spicy. Anyway, choosing your team, league team thoughts. Trips, what are you considering when you're picking a team for league?
So I think when you're picking your team for league, you definitely having a bit more of a, what's the long-term plan, your long-term goal, but also you're taking into account what the rest of the league is playing. And you see this with leagues that will end up being very bashy or very dashy, that if you have a league with a lot of certain style of play styles, taking something that is completely different to that could lead you to rapidly looking to restart your team 2-3 games in.
That works both ways. If you've got a heavy bash meta and you take a dash team, you're probably going to get murdered. If you've got a heavy dash meta and you bring a dwarf team, you might be all right, but you are going to get outscored in about half your games. You don't always know the meta for your league, so I think the second thing you need to consider is league length, because certain teams perform better at different points of their life. So a lot of the tier 1 teams, and this is where the tiering comes in really handy, is basically tier 1 teams, they're good to go. They're great at a million build, right? Then you've got tier 2 teams, they're great at 1300, and then you've got tier 3 teams that are never great. So you don't have to worry about that. But if you're looking at your league and going, it's a short league, I'm only going to get 4 to 6 games in, then the tier 1 teams are going to be dominant. But if you're like, oh, we play this league and the teams never die, and we re-budget, we redraft every 6 months down to 1350, which means after 6 months I'm going to be at 1350, the same as everybody else, well, then it doesn't massively matter what you want to choose. If you want to choose Nurgle, and by the time you redraft, your team will be about as good as everybody else's. But the first season is going to be tough, and that's definitely where the tiering comes in. It's tier 1, good to go out the gate. Tier 2, you're going to have to go through a season to get it to be a proper team.
And I think a lot about League, and this is the way you play League as well. It's not about what you want your team to be on day one. It's what you want your team to be 3, 4, 5 games in, depending on the length of the league, as you said. And you've got to really think about that developmental route. Or you can take the wholly random route, which is quite a popular league route as well, which is great for I'm playing this team and I will see what it will develop like.
That's what Milton's doing at the moment with his Chaos team in the Isle of Wight League. He's like, I'm just going to chuck a bunch of randoms on. Now, if you want to get your head around what a team could look like at certain points in its life, we've got a video series for it, which is the Dream Team season. So if you're thinking, I want to play Undead, well, we've got a roster at 1250, at 1500, and 1750 to be like, this is where your team will probably end up. This is what good looks like at that point. Season to your taste, but actually, if you're thinking, I have no idea how to develop this team, that video series is exactly for that. There's a case of, I'm joining a league, there's Nurgle, there's Dwarves, right? What are those teams going to look like at 1500? You're going to have a breakdown.
It's a good way to look at what other teams will look like as well, to work out how you think you can survive particularly if you're joining an established league, what you're going to be up against sort of first 2 or 3 games.
However, in a tournament, the first 2 or 3 games are all going to be the same, because most tournaments are resurrection, which means you have it's what I would call constructed Blood Bowl. You pick your skills, you pick exactly your star player, you pick exactly what you're going to get. Now, normally in a tournament, all of that resource will be limited, but you will have stuff. League, you start with a million build, no skills most of the time. Tournament, you start with 1.1 to 1.2 million and half a dozen skills. Now, within that, you can add star players as well. So you kind of go in at that 6 to 8 game point in a league. And it can be really exciting, because you can put together builds that realistically, until Blood Bowl 3 lands and you've just got evenings to waste, you will never be able to build that team. I'm going to give block to my troll. Well, in tabletop, if you play twice a month, that's going to take about a year. So that's not fair. Probably about 6 months. But still, that's 6 months. You want to take a tournament, you go to a tournament, you go like, yeah, I'm going to give both my trolls block. I'm going to do this, and I can see how they play. So that's kind of the starting point of tournaments. But this is what got really interesting when we kind of did our prep chat trips. What are your thoughts around choosing a team for a tournament?
So I think tournament team choosing is a lot more based on, there's a lot more whim in it as well. I think what's happened recently within Blood Bowl and come out in the run up to tournaments will definitely affect it. We've seen it from the tournaments we've run. A new team a few months after it's been released will turn up in a slightly higher number. So you will see, tournaments for the next 2 or 3 months. You're going to see more Norse, you're going to see more Khorne than you would do average wise. And I think the other thing with tournaments is you'll see people take a build that they've gone there with an aim to do. They will take I'm going for the most fouls build. Adam,
Oh,
we're talking to you there.
the Adam Pike build, yeah.
Yeah. Or you're the I'm trying to pull off a certain play, or I'm going for the stunty cup, and that's why I've picked a stunty team. So I think that the theme of the team and what you're trying to get out of it will be a big thing, as well as I've got a new team in a box, and I know that taking it to a tournament will force me to paint it on the Friday of the evening before.
Yeah, that's massive. Tournaments are a great way for you to try out a team. And every time we run an event, we run it with a view of setting the limit and the skills to be what would be reasonable for you at month 4 of your team. So if you want to try out a nobility team, you bring it to the tournament, you play for 3 games, you've already got some skills, you really enjoyed it, well, you know what you're aiming for. You'd be like, right, actually, I do need to get these blitzers dodge because they're really good at that point. You learn about your team's future, and you could quite frankly take it to a tournament and go, ooh, I did not really enjoy this build. I don't think this is the right team for me. Or you bring the new hotness, or this is something we haven't talked about, but reading the meta based on the rule set can be so much fun.
Yeah.
You know, and this is what we see with different normally tournaments will use tiering, some of them don't. So you kind of look at the roster build and you go, oh, actually, like we looked at the Excalibur tournament, tier 3 teams get 7 skills, 4 of them are doubles, 4 of them are secondaries. So you can go, I can take ogres, 5 ogres, that's 4 lots of block, and I put leader on the other ogre so I can get the extra team value in there. So that's going to save me a 70k from a reroll because I've put my 5th skill, which is a leader skill. So I've then got 170 off a million build, so I don't have to worry about that. And then I can maybe do this or take this, and you've got that building element, and that can also be massively influenced by the rules of the tournament, like what tiering is good, what the special rules for the event are. We ran Beachhead a couple of years ago where you got an extra big guy if you could pay for it, and it's a case of, actually, because of that, I want to take this team, which is what Wayne did and ended up winning, because he was like, right, I'm going to take Renegades, have 4 big guys, and just see if I can use them and put it together. And that's kind of it with a tournament, is you read the rule pack, and everything we've talked about applies. If you love a team because you love the way it plays, if you love the way it looks, if you want to paint up a new team, it's a great way to kind of delve in. And yeah, it's the biggest opportunity for you to get. Don't even think of it as a tournament. Don't think of it as a competition. Think of it as a game day where you're getting together with a bunch of people and playing 3 games of Blood Bowl. What do you want to get out of it? Have fun, learn about my team, try something stupid, do what Gary does all of our tournaments. He's like, right, my goal for this tournament is I'm going to take Scroll and a Ghoul with Catch, and that is my goal, is to hoon it down the pitch with Scroll and score a touchdown and pull off the Scroll combo. And it was great because people were cheering for him to do it because it's just so cool.
Oh, it's so cool. And you'll see that it's a great way to test a team. If you've got a new team and you want to work out how they play 3 or 4 games in a day, and you'll rapidly learn so much about them. And then you could take them into the league. I think the other thing with tournaments as well, is particularly because of the builds, is the star players.
Yeah.
You'll often see coaches start with, I want to play this star.
Yes.
How and which teams can I get them into? And it used to be a tighter with a limited number, but we're getting to the stage now where you can pick a star and then you've still got 3 or 4 teams you can pick from, and then a few different builds within those.
I was going to say that's 3 or 4 teams that you can get a good build out of, not just like 3 or 4 teams that can take them. It's 3 or 4 teams that have got a good roster. Like Beachhead couple of years ago, Trips was quite a low TV tournament, wasn't it? 1100, and you still managed to get Griff in there.
And it was very much, I started with, I want to take Griff. Now, how do I do it? Well, as it turned out, you took Griff and
no
rerolls. A whole
rerolls.
team of linemen and no rerolls, and you pray all day that your Griff does it. The Griff things.
That was a great match. That was a shootout. That was a good one. That was a very good game. But
the cracking game of a dash team playing a dash player with lots of human linemen going, off he goes.
Yeah, Griff was just running around being a demigod, as he often is. Now, I think that's everything on the list for talking through choosing a team. Trips, was there anything you wanted to add on this one?
So I think third party, what that's come out with will influence it as well. I mean, spikes will definitely influence it, and what people are playing. But I think the best thing is that you can choose any team and have any justification, and it will be absolutely fine. And the best thing is you just take the team you want to take. And I think we've seen the most fun with people when they have taken a team for a reason, either to learn with them, or they want to really have a crack at winning, as we said, or they are trying something, or they are trying to do something that really is probably not going to be that possible, but give it a go anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, rule one, favorites and appearance. Play the team you want to play because you want to play it. The good thing about Blood Bowl is there's always a way to win. Doesn't matter what team you're playing. And certainly after turn 3 it can feel very different, but on any given Sunday, as they say, on any given Blood Bowl day, any team can win. And it's just the best thing about the game. Anyway, we are going to take a quick break and then it's FAQ time. Okay, so FAQ / designers commentary / errata. Games Workshop have said that they're going to bring out a Blood Bowl update essentially in November and May every single year. So we've known that the FAQ is coming. So beginning of this week, we put out a thing on the YouTube channel saying, hey, what is it that you're looking for from the FAQ? Let us know, well, the whole point was to do the top 5 Friday, which, as this goes out today, if you're a patron, you've already seen it. If not, then go back and watch the video from yesterday because it was interesting. And it was not exactly what we were expecting. But what we're going to do, Trips, we'll talk through the changes, the new changes to the FAQ, and then we'll talk about the changes. I think is probably the best way to do it. So let's focus on the Blood Bowl first of all. What exactly can a team reroll be used to reroll? A team reroll can only be used when a team is active and during its own team turn. It can be used to reroll all the dice in a dice pool. A team reroll may not be used to reroll the following rolls: deviation, scatter, bounce, armor, injury, casualty, throw-in, bribes, and argue the call. I think we knew that one already.
I think that and there's a few of these. We'll see it where the language has been tidied, or if there was ever a case where there was confusion or an ability to try and read it in a different way, that's been cleared up.
Yeah, and that is exactly, we mustn't forget this, and that we're going to kind of summarize at the end with this, but that is what the FAQ is for. The FAQ is to hit on frequently asked questions and unmuddy certain rules. So the next one was an interesting one. Can a team remove a team reroll from their roster during the league to lower their team value? No. Once a team reroll has been bought, it is permanently there for the duration of the league. That was an interesting one. It's not. I don't know, Trips, if that's come up too much, but it's.
I don't think it's come up. It's definitely someone who's running a special stunty team has asked that question, so it needed answering. But I don't. Particularly in this version, rerolls a gold dust. You could give me 12, and I'll still not
use
have
them by
any
turn
in turn
2.
6. Yeah,
yeah. Blood Bowl 2, I believe you can actually sell the rerolls in between games to manage your team value. So it's kind of an important thing from a team development aspect. Now, this does make you really think about whether you want to start with 4 rerolls or start with 3 and then use leader to pick up that 4th reroll instead. Because it kind of get to the point where like, I've got 4 rerolls and now my guy's randomly rolled leader. I don't need that many rerolls. Maybe I'll get rid of a reroll. Well, in a league, you can't. So it's definitely worth knowing. The next one is about Blitz. If I roll a Blitz result on the kickoff event table, it states I'm allowed to activate D3+3 open players. Do these players need to be open when the kickoff event is rolled, or can I activate players that become open during the Blitz, such as if a player pushes an opposition player away from a teammate so that they are now open? Good strats, I like that, but they must be open at the time of the kickoff event. I I get this one, Trips. And I
So I
also
get it. This one feels like someone's had a big argument over what does blitz mean, and it's bitterly ended up as an FAQ.
yeah.
It's actually it in a way it's a timing clarification.
Yes.
They've clarified
Yeah.
when you have a blitz at exactly what point are players open.
Yeah.
And what you do first.
Yeah, I like that. It does clarify it. Like, I did enjoy the whole aspect of, okay, I'll blitz this guy, which then frees up this guy who was on the line of scrimmage to now move. I did like that kind of aspect of it, but it does clear it up. It does make it more straight. I think if you're having a blitz turn, the best thing to do then is to just turn around the models that are marked at the beginning of that phase. That means that at no point can you accidentally free up a player and then accidentally move a player.
I think if you rolled a blitz, be grateful you've rolled a blitz.
Oh yeah,
use it, take it forward. Don't try it, and
don't game it too much.
Game it so much that your opponent is literally going, well, I won't have the ball.
And you know what? This is another great reason why Blood Bowl 2 I don't enjoy quite so much, is because it's all the old kickoff stuff as well.
Oh yeah,
so it's like
it comes up too much.
The old blitz was just horrible. So yeah, that's good. That's gone. Can a player that performed a special action also make a move action before or after performing the special action? Trips, I'm really glad they brought this one out, because we talked about this with Thorson, right?
We had this in the game. We both were looking at the wording of the rule, and you're like, we can read it either way.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way that we thought it should be played.
Yes,
but it's really good to see it clarified that quickly.
So yeah, so no, unless the special action in question specifically states otherwise or is performed as part of a blitz action if applicable. Note that some special actions that can be used as part of a blitz action also state the player cannot move after performing the special action. So unless it says you can do it, you can't do it. And you can't do it as part of a blitz. So basically, one of the things that confuse this is that when you throw a bomb, the bombardier skill says this is a special action and you can't move after it. Then there are other actions that were a special action and don't say that you can't move.
Yeah.
So the precedent is set in the one that says you can't move, that why would it say you can't move after it unless you normally can? Well, actually, they've cleared it all up. If it's a special action, unless it says you can move, you can't move. So that is a good thing. And now we know how to use Thorson correctly. And I think that does make him less powerful, which is fine. He's in the middle category now, which I think is a fair one. Does a player who has the jump up skill need to roll to stand up if they also have a movement allowance of 2 or less? No. Jump up works beautifully. So Tree Man with jump up, great way of doing it if you can wait 12 SPP. I mean, taking block might mean he doesn't actually get knocked over. So I don't know. Maybe block is still better than jump up, but
someone's still doing it. So
yeah,
good to have the rule clarified.
Absolutely. It's a good one. When a player declares an opposition player as the target of a blitz, right? Basically, when you declare a target, when you blitz, do you have to blitz only that target? And yes, you can only declare your block against that target. So if you've got a Minotaur, you're saying, right, I'm going to blitz your thrower, and then you activate him, and then you move him, and you go, actually, I want to block this dude instead. You can't. You can only block that thrower. You don't have to block the thrower. You can move the Minotaur anywhere you want, but you can only block that player because you declared him as a target. I believe this is fully to do with the way that foul appearance works, or dump off as well. Yeah, and I like that. That makes sense. All right, this is the most contentious bit. Yeah,
this is the everyone went. Hello.
Yeah. If a thrown player lands in an occupied square and then subsequently bounces into another occupied square, is the player that is in the new occupied square also knocked down? So that one made sense. That's Skittles. That's how we were rolling it anyway. If you chuck a goblin at a cage and it hits a bunch of dudes, the bunch of dudes are going to go down. However,
and that is why you chuck a goblin at a cage.
It was. However, if a thrown player lands in an occupied square, it will automatically fall over after bouncing into an unoccupied square. Does this cause a turnover even if the thrown player was not carrying the ball? Yes, this set off a mini nuclear device in the video comments on the Blood Bowl community. Now, let's preface this. And there's a lot of opposing views that have come out of this. And there are two things that are both correct and are both true, but countermand each other. Those two things are this is just what the rules says. The rule says this happens because it says the dude falls over, and page 20 or whatever says falling over causes a turnover. So yes, one, the rules have always said this, but two, because the subsection above that rule says it doesn't cause a turnover, it means that everyone read it like this doesn't cause a turnover. Move on. Yeah, it doesn't. Just assumed it's the same rules, which means it's been most commonly played, essentially incorrectly. And that is why everyone's like, "Oh, this is ruined. This is ruined." Because
it's being played incorrectly more often than not,
especially on our channel,
probably more fun in the incorrect way.
Way more fun. So now with throwing a player, if you throw a player without the ball and he crash lands on his own, it's not a turnover. If you throw a player who doesn't have the ball and he goes into the crowd, it's not a turnover. If you throw a player who doesn't have the ball but he hits another player, then it is a turnover. And this is the thing that's interesting. Even if you throw a guy into the ground and he dies, and then you use an apothecary and he dies again, even if you kill a goblin twice, it's not a turnover. But if you throw a goblin into another goblin and they are both fine, it is a turnover. The flow doesn't feel right, but it is absolutely what the rulebook says. So it's a great FAQ in that regard. It's a good job doing it, but it doesn't feel right.
That it's going to be it doesn't feel like it's consistent. I think that's always going to be the issue. That's what always causes a bit of rule rage, is consistency.
Yeah.
But it is the way the rule's written in the first place. So from that point of view, yeah, it's good that they've tidied it up.
Yeah, it is massively going to affect Stunty. We'll talk about that in a bit. I think it's probably the biggest takeaway here.
The biggest thing it changes is that turn order of this, because you're not throwing a player in to try and do something and then run players through the gaps you've created, because he lands on something and that's your last action of the turn.
Yeah, goblins, snotlings, you throw a player at the cage, then you throw a bomb at the cage, then you run in and get the bomb, and then you run in and get the ball. Now you throw a bomb at the cage, you throw a player at the cage. If the player at the cage bit works, that's the end of the turn. So it's quite big. It does sadly raise the question of, what about kick teammate? Does that still... technically, it's still about landing a player. It doesn't actually say with a thrown player. It just says, oh yeah, it does, if a thrown player lands at an occupied square. So that's going to raise some FAQs around kick teammate. Which I don't want to touch right now. We'll figure it out. During the end of drive sequence, what happens first? Players sent off or weather effects. Secret weapons are sent off first. I think that's a good clarification. If a player makes a superb kick teammate special action, does it generate star player points like a throw teammate special action? No. Again, that is how it's written. That is correct. It's a shame.
Written, it's not fun, but it's the way the rule is written.
Yeah, it's this one I like. If I hire a journeyman that gained an advancement during step 3 of the post-game sequence, how much do they cost to hire? They will cost the same as their current value, including the cost of any advancements gained. Basically, if you've got a Skaven journeyman and he causes 2 touchdowns, and you go, oh cool, I'll level him up. He's now going to cost 70k. Basically, if your journeyman does good stuff, buy him.
Do not level him up. Level
him up next game.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you'll save, potentially 20k.
You'll save whatever you're going to grade.
Now, there's a lot of the times where actually maybe a cheeky random skill is a great way to do it. I've got a journeyman beastman. I'll roll a random on him, see what he gets. Cool. The guy got claw. Yeah, I'll buy him for 70k instead of 60k. There's definitely... You just be careful. Don't be like, oh great, I can give that guy kick. I'll give him kick and then I'll buy him, because you're paying for that.
There's going to be someone who's gone, that's the advancement I want. I'll buy him. I don't have that much money.
Yeah, I can't get him now.
Can I have him at his base price?
Yeah. So be very careful of that one. Again, it makes a lot of sense. If a player with the animal savagery trait has the jump up skill, do they still get +2 to the roll if they wish to attempt to make a block while prone? Yes. Saxby loves a good jump up Minotaur, and this is
I think
true to
it's
form.
an amazing skill on the Minotaur, and it turns the Minotaur from being a mad frenzy idiot to a
dead weight,
scary mad frenzy idiot.
Yeah. So definitely watch Jump Up. This FAQ is sponsored by Jump Up.
Yes.
Oh, here we go. If a player has both the jump up skill and the stab trait, can they use the jump up skill to allow it to make a block action from prone, then replace this block action with a stab special action? Yes. So if you've got a jump up on your Dark Elf Assassin, you can jump up and stab dudes.
So just like throwing has got nerfed, what this, and we'll see some more in a minute. This is why you should take an assassin in the Dark Elf team. It's gonna come through in the next 3 FAQs.
So what exactly can the pro skill be used to reroll? Reroll a single dice rolled by the player on his own or part of a multiple roll. It cannot be used to reroll a dice that was rolled as part of injury, armor, casualty, a roll that is not made during its own activation such as regeneration, or a dice that is not rolled on behalf of that player specifically such as bribe or argue the call. Yeah, that made sense to me.
Yeah.
If a player attempts to dodge away from a player with shadowing, which roll happens first, the dodge roll or the roll for shadowing? The dodge roll will happen first, and once the dodge has been resolved, the opposing player may roll for shadowing if they wish. I like that. That's good sequencing.
Good sequencing, and pretty logical, because you can't shadow a player who's fallen over.
It would have been potentially useful for them to say in what order you roll a go for it, a rush and a dodge. Now, we've got really good as a player base of declaring it. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter because both things are going to go, it's all going to go wrong. But it does come up very different because a lot of that dodging is going to be a 3+, and the go for it's going to be a 2+, and it's just an interesting one.
Yeah. Unless you're Norsing it, and then it's nice and easy.
Just give up. Play Skaven. If a player has both the frenzy and stab trait, if they declare a block action which results in a pushback, when they follow up and have to perform a second block action, can they stab instead? Yes, this is how it used to be. This is how it is correct to be. So yeah, this is the rise of the frenzy assassin. I really hope we get a hobgoblin team or a night goblin team with a goblin with stab.
We need another player with stab now, because you just don't see assassins enough, and it's a great skill, but it's not a great positional within their build.
Assassins are good in tournaments because of the rise of Underworld and Snotlings. I played against Sandball. Game 3 was against Dark Elves. We drew 1-1 in the end, but he was running 2 assassins, and it was just stab, taking out Snotlings left, right, and centre. Brilliant, especially with like Norse coming now. Now they're low armour. Actually, assassins worth considering in a tournament environment. They will get beaten up in a league. Can a player, I like this one, can multiple players from the same team use on the ball in response to the same pass action? If so, what happens if one of them falls over? Yes, they all get to use on the ball, but it's done sequentially, and if a dude falls over, no one else can be moved. So essentially, when on the ball kicks in, you have a little mini blitz turn where the on the ball guys do stuff, but if you get an on the ball turnover, then the on the ball turn phase ends.
I would love to play in an Edge Parsi league and give a load of players on the ball now. You would be a nightmare. You'd be like, oh, you're throwing the ball, excellent. I should just reposition my entire team.
Yes, I do like this ruling. It makes a lot of sense, because otherwise it's just a case of I can just take really bad dodges with all my on the ball guys and nothing matters.
Yeah.
Actually, this is like you still can't go crazy with it. I like that. I think that's probably the right thing. Does a player with ball and chain have to use their full movement? No, we knew that, but good to get it cleared up. Does skills this is my favorite one. Does skills
yeah.
Do skills that apply to the ball but are not part of a pass action, such as Fumblerooski, also apply to a bomb? No, because a bomb is not a ball. Actually, how the FAQ's written, I like that a lot. Can a player use a reroll of any kind, team reroll, pro, etc., to reroll to see if a bomb that was caught will explode? No. I like that. I think it's a nice bit of clarity because it is kind of the thing that only comes up like once every month in a league, and it's like, I don't know. No, you can't. If that bomb goes off, the bomb goes off. If you're playing Bomber Dribble Snot, that bomb is going to go off anyway. Can players using Chainsaw get assists for fouls? Yes, which is excellent. Again, we knew that, but it's nice to have it clarified. Can a team reroll be used to reroll a regeneration roll? No, as the active team's turn has already ended by the time the regeneration reroll is made. Yeah. So again, that one came up at League a couple of times, didn't it, Trips? And
yeah.
It's good to have a definitive no. If a player holding the ball is turned into a frog as the result of the zap spell and the ball is first forced to bounce, is a turnover caused? No, that's good. That was an edge case where you can use the wizard at the start of your opponent's turn. So their turn has started. They then drop the ball as the ball carrier, which causes a turnover. Doesn't anymore. So that's good. Hackflem, when does he get to use a special ability? It is only at the start of his activation. Again, that's good. That's straightened that up. So there's a bunch of stuff in the death zone bit, which is mostly inducement related. They're all very specific. I don't think there was anything in there that was particularly important. What happens when a wizard hits the crowd? Nothing cares. No one cares. Something about runes.
Lots of someone has asked the question and it could be answered, but
yeah,
nobody really needed to know the answer.
So I was a bit there's only one Dungeon Ball FAQ, I think. If a player on a portal is rooted as per the take root trait and then is subsequently teleported, such as by a chain reaction, are they still considered to be rooted? No. I like that. That makes sense. Must really suck to get rooted on a teleporter, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty rare, but it might happen.
Yeah, I love that this is frequently asked questions. How frequently was that question asked? Like, really?
I mean, we've discussed whether trees are potentially the worst positional in Dungeon Bowl.
Yeah,
and only good thing might be covering the end zone. Well, if they get rooted on a teleporter now, well, they're
going to be more mobile,
to move them,
which is excellent. Okay, this one sucked, Trips. When Scylla Anfingrim uses his Fury of the Blood God special rule to perform 2 block actions, is the first block action made in its entirety, including the use of the Fury skill, before the second block action is made? Yes. Okay. Trips, what does Fury do?
You'll have to remind me on this one because I haven't looked into this star player very much.
Oh, no. There is no Fury skill.
Is this the frenzy?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this one has not really clarified this. I think what it means, but then if you're saying I think what it means about an FAQ document, all you're doing is creating another FAQ document. So this then turns into a multiverse kind of situation, and there's enough of that in the cinemas. So basically, if Scylla fails a really angry check, he can pop his feet to use Fury of the Blood God, which means he gets to make 2 block actions. The question was, are those block actions sequential? When does he choose multiple targets, and can it be multiple targets? The answer was yes. So we still don't know how that works. What it says is the first block action made in its entirety, including the use of the Fury, which we believe means Frenzy skill, before the second block action is made.
Yeah, so Scylla's special rule is Fury of the Blood God.
Yes, which is why they've written
Fury. Yeah,
which is why they've written Fury instead of Frenzy. So the whole idea is that when a Minotaur or a Blood Beast gets angry, they just stand there being angry. When this dude gets angry, he attacks twice instead.
Yeah.
So how this is supposed to play out, I believe, given the FAQ answer, is he makes a full strength 5 block action, follows up with Frenzy, blocks again, and then makes an entirely new block action. But what we needed to know is it on the same player? Does he choose a new target now because he's already moved? Really... No, because
and how do you pick that player? And
exactly. Now, I think as it stands now with the FAQ, it's an entirely different block action. Therefore, he doesn't need to declare that target of the block action, and should therefore be able to double block a dude or push and then block a guy who he wasn't in base contact with. So if Scylla is on the edge of the cage,
is he moving around and
Yeah.
ending up blocking a player 2 squares away?
Exactly. So Scylla could now block his way into a cage and then block the ball carrier with the second block, if and only if he fails that animal savagery. No, not animal savagery. Unchanneled fury.
So I think on behalf of everyone TOing a tournament for the next 6 months, figure out what you're going to do with this one before the day. Because if anyone brings Scylla, it's going to come up.
Oh, it will definitely come up. And not only did they get it wrong once, they got it wrong twice, which is hilarious in the same bit. So there was none of that. We got some more Death Zone clarifications, which were basically timing rules for wizards. So if you are using a cool wizard from Death Zone, double check it. I mean, Trips, we've run a Dungeon Bowl tournament now. We're pretty good at understanding that there will be questions of wizard timings.
I think this was it didn't massively need doing, but it was they're really good timing clarifications, which just can prevent the whole should it be here or should it be there. Someone has gone through that very clearly and figured it out, which is nice.
Yeah, it's excellent. I do appreciate that. This one was interesting. So giants, base size and tackle zones. Add the following to the end of the second paragraph. Whenever a giant finishes a move action or follows up after a block action, then they may change their facing if they wish. Though if done as part of following up after a block action, they must still be marking the player if possible. So we can assume then that changing of facing can only happen with the giant if they've blocked and followed up, or if they've moved, which I tell you what does make sense. When we ran the giants, it was a case of if you activate the giant, you can leave him how you want. This does go counter to that. And then the kickoff touchback rule was corrected in sevens, which is the ball is fine to land anywhere except in the kicking team's zone, which was great.
Goodness, that's been done. We should run some sevens now.
We should definitely run some sevens. Right, Dungeon Bowl, there was another bit. They corrected Snotlings to have Titchy, so we win. Yeah. We win.
I think you find that that was in a rule set recently used by us.
Yeah, we win that one. That said, someone did flag this up on a comment in the video earlier about the Norse guys, because the Norse Raiders in the Spike magazine for the College of Heavens don't actually have thick skull.
Ooh.
Which is interesting.
That's another typo, but it hadn't. It probably would have missed the cutoff, I would imagine.
No, this is the thing. In the actual bit at the top, it said the rules presented here may differ slightly from those for Norse Blood Bowl teams.
Oh.
So they corrected the Snotling error, but actually in Spike 14...
deliberately did it.
So we got that wrong. I don't know how. I don't like that. I think that's... the whole point is the Snotlings and the Fire College team didn't have Titchy. We made the ruling that they did have Titchy because a Snotling is a Snotling is a Snotling, and we just don't think it makes sense to have two identical players be ever so slightly different when they're the same model and the same cost.
A Snotling's never going to be overpowered, so if a Snotling doesn't have Titchy, what is a Snotling?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. Then we got some Favourite of Khorne updates, and then probably the biggest FAQ update, or the most obvious one to fix that they waited so long for. Barrack Farblast became Cannoneer instead of Strongarm, which was just obviously going to happen.
That was the one we'd all wanted. Everyone knew that happened, but we've had to wait till the official FAQs for it.
Yeah, and now I probably have to redo the Spotlight video. Then we move on to the tier list, which did not change.
Yeah.
So that is all of the stuff that was in the designer's commentary for May 2022. We've covered what's changed. Biggest yay or nay for you, Trips?
So biggest yay for me is actually they've not tweaked too much. They've just done a lot of tidying and detail, and I think running into the summer of Blood Bowl and tournaments and leagues and actually people being able to play, I think it's great that there's not going to be a massive swing or change to things. I think that's not a bad thing in my mind. I'll open it up to you at that point.
I right. This is interesting. This is an interesting thing because I am absolutely in two minds. But I was looking at some of the video comments from the FAQ and some of the top 5 wish list, and there's a comment right at the bottom of the FAQ bits. Was it bottom of that or was it wish list top 5? It was top 5, and it was from our buddy David Priest. He said, controversial opinion, but maybe nothing. Maybe it's hard enough to keep up with all the new teams and star players, plus the different rule sets from different leagues and tournaments. Any rules that people think are wrong for everyone, so it's fair. It's fine for those of us who've been following the game, but it's really off-putting for new players when you show them 3 rulebooks and then say, oh, but you've also got to check these websites because they've changed some of the rules. So I think to your point, Trips, the biggest yay is the fact that they haven't changed that much. I think
that's a massive point because we have
agree
number of times looked at other tournament players when other games are going on, and you can see them with their sort of
even Craig and Ian when they were playing Age of Sigmar at Club the other week. I was kind of like, I've got this, and I've got this from a White Dwarf, and I'm like, oh, you guys, that's just it doesn't sound fun at all. Actually, I think David Priest's point here, I think, is absolutely superb. It's like the less change, the better. If it's wrong, it's wrong, and everyone knows that it's wrong, and therefore it is right, and it is an acceptable thing. However, I am also of the opinion that and I know this is the Blood Tide would definitely want us to talk about this, is actually having a rebalance, having that bit of rotation is also really fun. Like, it was really exciting when the tiers changed, when the star players costs changed, but I think that timeline is really important, and I think the more, I guess I'm coming full circle on this, because the more we were involved with Blood Bowl and stuff, it doesn't need to change up very often. It really doesn't. Like, yeah, if there's a couple of stupid things, there's stupid things in every game. But I think the biggest yay is that majority of these rules were tidy ups. And yes, the throw teammate one feels wrong, but that is what it says in the rulebook, and that's how it's supposed to have been played the whole time. And fine, you know what? It hurt stunties, and every FAQ hurt stunties. Hail Mary got bad. Now throw teammate got bad. And, you know, I imagine, I don't know, what can they do next time? Well, they'll find something. But yeah, take Titchy back away from the Snotlings. But I think that's the right thing.
So I think there is a happy middle ground for which I think everyone will be happy, and that's where you use the May FAQ like they've used it now
to
tidy, to sort, to reword, to do the timings, to just do all the clarifications. And then you have the once a year meta change, and you do that in November. Because if you do change any of the scoring, the pricing, or the tiers on a regular basis, it will become a what is the tiering system this time? Whereas it's like the General's Handbook or the Tomb of Champions for Warcry.
Yeah,
you do it once a year, people can live with that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that rebalance versus FAQs are there to tidy up the rules, and this one tidied up the rules, and none of it here, with the exception of I guess Scylla, and that's really just because it's kind of a bit of an uncomplicated. But everything here was like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's how we expected it to be. But how come people have been asking that? It's been written down, and that's great. But it's come through at FAQ because people were unsure about it. So excellent. Well, we've now got it lined up, and that's really good. It's interesting because when we looked at like things that people wanted from the FAQ, the majority of it was rebalancing or rules changes. And actually, it's interesting, and I think that's the massive breadth and width that Blood Bowl gives you. Of this is a game you can play 20 games a week and love it, and that's less than one game per team, right? But there's also the coaches there that play 3 games a year or a quarter because they go to one tournament every few months because that's all they can fit into their life. And actually, Blood Bowl is the kind of game that deserves to just be the game as it is. And actually, if all they're doing is introducing new teams and optional rules that most events don't use, like so Death Zone, the only thing we've got in Death Zone for any of our events is the Giant because it's really cool. But actually, sitting down against an opponent in Blood Bowl who's got a team you've never seen before, they sit down against Norse and they're like, oh, is this the new Norse team? Or they sit down against Khorne and they're like, oh, what's this team do? Here's my team sheet. Literally everything you need to know is on this sheet. It's a few stats, a few skills, and you're good to go. That, I think, is excellent. But I think the more rebalancing that happens, it definitely gets rid of it. Now, there's another part of me, don't get me wrong, that would merrily pay £20 a year for a competitive book of Blood Bowl. And this is the competitive format. We've downgraded the cost of these stars. We've upgraded the cost of these stars. We've changed this skill on this team. This is your competitive thing for this year. Go. Great. Now we've got, Underworld.
The Bonehead manual every year.
Yeah. See, that would be amazing. But it doesn't, it's not what Blood Bowl is about. Blood Bowl is about playing within the rules because there's so much to do within the rules, and that's what puts me off. I love Adeptus Titanicus, but there's now so much stuff outside of just the table. Like Age of Sigmar and 40k are the worst for this. It's like playing a war game in a Yu-Gi-Oh cartoon. I'm like, what is this? I don't want that to be the case of Blood Bowl, although I do want more wizards.
And we got spoiled a little bit in November with the changes to the stars and the tiers. But did we all go, oh, this is going to be great, they're going to be updated? Or was it then just going, we got the pricing a little bit wrong, we got the tiering wrong, we've seen what everyone is doing with Hack Lemon, that needs to be stopped.
Yeah, and I think we got excited at the prospect of, oh wow, we're going to have a rebalance, and this could be great. Well, there's definitely some elements that would be great, and some of the suggestions that you guys made about skills and things are like, well, why can't we first of all fix Hail Mary Pass? Why don't we make Iron Skin a little bit better? Why don't we make some of the skills that aren't used a little bit better? I love the idea of that, but then you get to that point where there's your rulebook and your spike. That's all you need right now, and you really don't need the rulebook very often, and you don't really ever need a spike. You need your roster. You go to a Blood Bowl event, you need a roster. That is basically all you're going to need, except for the weather table and kickoff table, because no one can remember it. Because we played with the old one for 20 years. That's it, right? Everything else is good to go. But if you get to the point where you're like, right, actually that rule does this now, then it does get away from the wonderful thing that is Blood Bowl, is that the carnage of Blood Bowl is on the pitch, on the table, and you're both watching it fall apart. If you have to study for a game, it's not a game, it's a job.
And as we mentioned earlier, hopefully BB3 might be out before the next FAQ. That would be good. And Games Workshop have made Cyanide's life a bit easier by not rewriting a whole heap of rules, which means it needs to be delayed for another 3 months before they go, oh, we were playing it the other way as well.
Yeah, we'll have Blood Bowl 2 live with the old rules. We'll have Fumble live with the pretty much closest rules to tabletop. There'll be Blood Bowl 3 that will be 6 to 12 months behind the most recent FAQ. And then there'll be Tabletop where everyone gets the rules wrong all the time anyway. And then you'll have our games on the channel where we think we're doing the right thing, but by the time the video comes out, the FAQ's gone live. And it doesn't. I really hated that. I can't remember what it was. It was on one of the videos, and the video went live, and someone was like, oh, it doesn't work like that. I'm like, it blooming did when we filmed it.
It did. But also, I think that is such a key part. We've touched on it before, and definitely when we've talked across the group, there are so many rules and decisions and details, and you probably see this in any tabletop game, pretty much any board game. You're going to make 1 or 2% mistakes, and that's going to happen. The trick is it's not to get really too hung up on it and go, sometimes it'll happen. As long as no one's doing it deliberately to game it, in the long run, is it going to be the biggest worry in the world?
Yeah, and I think David Priest is probably right there. There was a load of great comments between the two videos and stuff. And, you know, we look at our tournaments, the last two tournaments we've done, the meta, the variety of teams, the gameplay was so rich that if it stayed like this forever with no new teams and no new rules, I really don't think it would suffer for it. And that is a pretty amazing place to be, I think, with this game. Although I want more teams and I want more rules, but we don't need them, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there is plenty of design space there, and there's detail, and actually you tidy up all the rules as you go along. It does give you the ability to bring in new rules, so maybe that's helping us for the future, as by not having weird interactions that we didn't even think that we would ever worry about.
Right, on that one then, Trips, we'll wrap up, but I don't know if we've had a chance to ask you this. One new team can be introduced to Blood Bowl. What would you want it to be?
So one new team, well, other than sorting a team of legend, another team of legend out.
New team.
Well, I'd like to see the spiders from Warcry come across now in some variant. I think that would truly freak everybody out, and a spider would be like a beer ball, but with sting or something like that.
Stab would work.
Sting and stab, yeah.
Oh, scorpions with stab. That'd be quite fun.
Oh yeah.
I like that.
That would be.
I like that. I agree. We need spiders in Blood Bowl. Maybe a forest goblin team with spiders, like spider riders, like the Fumble team. I personally think that we are absolutely gagging for a Chaos Stunty team, so that we can actually see some of those Chaos Star players on the pitch.
Yeah, I think the team I'd love to see from a game point of view is something. I'd love to see a passing team come out that makes everyone want to pass the ball.
That would be sweet. I actually think some kind of like Elven League rule set like they do with the other ones. And I think that I honestly think one of the things that would change it the most, or would be really interesting to see, is if you throw to a dude and that dude scores a touchdown, then you both get the TDs.
Yeah,
move the elf catcher into the end zone.
You can choose who the split of SPP across them, something like that.
To make that more rewarding.
Or you could, you're advancing up your team could really, really benefit then, because you could level up your star catcher, who can then in reverse level up your thrower.
Exactly. Be really interesting, and would be more kind of how the NFL works, which I think is really cool. Anyway, Trips, thank you so much for giving up your evening to talk through some Blood Bowl nonsense. Always appreciated. No and guys, thank you very much for joining us. If you're going to go to the July tournament, get your tickets booked up soon, and then get your roster in the next few weeks, because it's going to be an awesome event. And I'm gutted I'm not going to be there, but it will be great. So that's the 9th of July. And if you can't make that, but you live near Taunton, a couple of weekends later, you've got the Excalibur Blood Bowl tournament. So loads of Blood Bowl kicking around. And we'll wrap up for the night. Thank you very much for sticking with us. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content. We get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead Podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.